Call to order Board of Zoning Appeals, August 12th, 2024. First item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from July 22nd, 2024. Motion from Mr. Milborn to accept as written. Second from Ms. Peters. All those in favor raise their right hand. All opposed.
I'll abstain since I was absent.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 3-0 with one abstention. Any special requests or continuances?
There was one request that a petitioner had made earlier this afternoon. They called my office to remove one of their proposed variances for the amount that the Madison sign, blade sign projects. They had requested a projection of 5 feet. Staff was unfavorable. I received a call, and I believe it's their intent that they will withdraw that. I assume we can do that when the petition comes up, as it is the first petition of the night.
Okay. Very good. Next is findings of fact for BCA 2024-025. Petitioner Brent Roberts on behalf of Fanneman Design for Fujiyama Steakhouse for 1535 West Sims Crossing Road.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as our final decision. Final action for variance petition number BCA 2024-025.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. One abstention. One more abstention. Motion carries 3-0 with the abstention. Next up, we have no old business. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move on to new business. First up is BCA 2024-026. This is for 523 South Madison Avenue. Petitioner is Gary Potts on behalf of Madison Apartments. They are requesting relief from 4 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1 is projecting blade sign to increase the maximum height from 144 inches to 282 inches. Number 2, to increase the maximum sign depth from 12 inches to 16 inches. Number 3, to increase the maximum projecting distance from 4 feet to 5 feet, which may be withdrawn. And then number 4, to eliminate the 1 foot surrounding brick or stone material requirement from the face of the sign. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in.
Swear I'm going to use perjury. That's what's true, best your knowledge.
And is everything in order? All the notices?
Notices are in order and in our file.
And I'd like to look at the comprehensive plan and Greenwood ordinance.
You approach the podium, sir. We'll get your name and address for the record, and there should be a sheet right there for you to fill that out so we get all the spellings correct.
Perfect. My name is Gary Potts. I am the owner of Professional Permits. Our office is located at 58171 Dragonfly Court in Osceola, Indiana. And I'll sign this in. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, Mr. Potts, tell us why you're here.
So we are here tonight on behalf of the Madison Apartments LLC, 523 Madison Apartments is the property owner. We're requesting some sign variances for a vertical blade sign on the side of the building, and then also the surround on the freestanding sign. The ordinance requires a 1 foot masonry surround. We're requesting to vary from that to not have it go around the base of the freestanding sign. We are removing the request to project the projecting sign from 5 feet to 4 feet, so we're no longer requesting that. So after the staff comment, I spoke with my client, and they decided that they would withdraw that request. They think it was 4 feet projection, so I think it was more of an aesthetics thing, to be honest, just that the vertical plane of the blade sign would kind of end as the same ending of the awning on the building. So it's more of an aesthetics thing, but it's kind of hard to prove a hardship on aesthetics, so. I will answer any questions you guys have. at this
Well,
time.
yeah, so before we go to the board and close the public hearing, do you have your answers to
I
the
do.
statements of reasons? So we'll walk through those and
Okay.
just, in reading them, it looks like the same answers apply to, well, now variances 1 and 2, since variance 3 has been withdrawn.
Correct.
So let's go through this. These answers will apply to both number 1, which is to increase the maximum height of a blade sign from 144 inches to 282 inches. And number 2, to increase the maximum depth of a blade sign from 12 inches to 16 inches. And for those, number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because,
Correct, because there is nothing contained in the sign to cause such an injury. It's an aesthetically pleasing sign and it complements the development of the property nicely.
okay. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because,
The sign is sufficient for wayfinding and identification for the development. It is not out of proportion with the size of the building.
and then number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because,
Code compliant sign would be out of scale with the height of the building and would result in smaller letter sizes and reduced sign legibility.
okay. So now let's move to variance number 4, which is to eliminate the 1-foot required brick or stone surrounding from a monument sign. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because,
The request is for an otherwise code compliant sign. There's nothing in the message or design of the sign that can be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. It's an aesthetically pleasing sign. It complements development of the building facade as well as the vertical blade sign.
okay. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because,
The sign is sufficient for wayfinding and for identification for the development.
and number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because,
It would result in a sign with smaller font sizes, thus negatively impacting legibility of the sign and affecting wayfinding.
and then for all of these, number 4 is the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. I guess anything else you'd like to add before I offer comments from staff and then close the public hearing?
No, not really. The only thing we wanted to add was the blade sign. We decided to go with that because of the proximity of the building to the street. We are allowed a wall sign if we wanted to have a flat wall sign on the side of the wall, but as close as it is to the street, you're gonna not have some legibility because it's just so close to the road. When you get that close, it's too big, it's not good. So we thought that a vertical blade sign would serve the public interest better as far as identification for the building. And then in order to do that, we want to go compliant. We just thought it would kind of look out of scale with the building. So that was one of the rationales for that.
Thank you. Staff comments?
For variance 1 and 2, as he stated, they would have the square foot area allowance if it was a wall sign. That's typically maybe better suited for something that has a larger setback or a parking lot in front of it. But we were neutral on that request. We think it's proportional to the size of the building. It's one of the taller buildings downtown, and the sign will kind of match the aesthetics of that building. Variance number 3, we were unfavorable of. That has been withdrawn, so we're pleased to see that they'll be meeting that projection. And then variance number 4, we really have no objections to the request. This is a request that you guys have gotten before for the 1 foot of brick surround around the size. It really just adds a lot of mass to the size and I think stifles some of the creative or aesthetic sign proposals that we do get. So staff has no objections for variance number 4. We do recommend that if the signs are approved, that the following conditions are met. The signs substantially conform to the proposed locations in Exhibit C. the signs substantially conform to the renderings depicted in Exhibit D, and a completed sign permit application for each sign be applied for and issued before installation. And just to clarify, as you guys probably noted, there are two different signs here. One is a monument sign, and one is a blade sign.
Yes, okay. All right. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Potts, before I turn it over to the board? No. We'll close the public hearing. Mr. Milborn, any questions?
I do not.
Mr. King?
None.
Mrs. Peters?
No questions.
So on the 1 foot brick wrap, that was applicable to the blade sign?
That is applicable to the monument sign. What our current ordinance requires is for surrounding the entire sign, you would need to add 1 foot of brick around the entire face of the sign.
Okay.
So they have, the base is made out of brick, and that is, as you mentioned, everything else is compliant to code. You would just need to picture 1 foot of brick around the entire face of the sign, which would add a lot of mass to the sign. They would likely have to shift the letters down to fit under our 6 foot height requirement. This is getting deeper into our sign code, but that is essentially the request to not have that much mass on the
And the
sign.
difficulty that it would provide. Yeah.
Correct.
All right, thank you for that clarification. So I have no other questions. I will take a motion to admit all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. I'll take a motion on the docket. So first up is number 1, to increase the maximum front east. Nope. Wrong one. Number 1, to increase the maximum height of a blade sign from 144 inches to 282 inches.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this with the 3 conditions in the staff report.
And let's get those into the record on this.
1, the signs substantially conform to the proposed locations in Exhibit C. 2, the signs substantially conform to the renderings depicted in Exhibit D. 3, a completed sign permit application for each sign be applied for and issued before installation.
I have a motion by Mr. King to approve with those 3 conditions, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Number 2, to increase the maximum depth of a blade sign from 12 inches to 16 inches.
I move that we approve this request with the same 3 conditions.
Motion by Mr. King to approve with the same 3 conditions, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Number 3 is withdrawn. Number 4, to eliminate the 1 foot required brick or stone surrounding from a monument sign.
I move that we approve this request with the same 3 conditions.
Need to approve with the same conditions, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion to direct the corporation's counsel to draft the findings of fact.
Having considered statutory criteria, I move that we direct the corporation counsel's office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2024-026. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record. for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision, and final action regarding this petition in our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. You are welcome to proceed. We will take final action in a couple weeks, but you're good to work with staff and get things going.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Just if you are able to submit the revised weight sign with the 4 feet instead of 5 feet, we'll be able to approve this.
Okay, next up, we have, I know they're all out of order. Okay, we have BZA 2024-27 through 31, which are all submitted from the same petitioner. These are all on petitioner Greg Ilko on behalf of IHR Equity Fund
And just to interrupt while you organize the paper, they are all the same request. They had come before us once before with the number of requests to maintain their original design. It was noted that they, at that meeting, that they would need to come back before us to reduce the height. Our zone requires a higher, taller building than they are requesting. And what I would recommend, since they're all the same request, that we condense the reading into the record, that it would apply to all of them. At the end, you would still need to make a separate motion for each of the lots.
Yeah, and the other thing I was trying to confirm, it's just one request for each docket, which is the request to reduce the minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet. Correct. Okay, and it's for 1148 Easy Street, 1162 Easy Street, 1188 Easy Street, 1153 Easy Street, 1117 Easy Street. Also, these are known as lots 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Correct. All right. Are all the notices and receipts in order?
Everything is in order and in our files.
Comprehensive plan and regular orders for each variance before the board today.
All right, name and address for the, well, let's get you sworn in first.
Mr. Alvin, surgery, Western Street, West Knowledge.
Now, name and address for the record, and also if you haven't already filled that out.
I've got it filled out. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Greg Ilko with Crossroad Engineers, opposite 115 North 17th Avenue, Beach Grove, Indiana, 46107. As Gabe identified, I was back here late May. I was hoping to be back in July for this. We had 5 variances back in May for the Easy Street condominiums. 4th of July screwed me up with notifications, so we got pushed back to this August meeting. So I appreciate your patience, but I am back. The height variance, as we identified, as Gabe identified, is what we're looking for relief from for all 5 of the properties, thus the 5 separate BCA docket numbers. So just some quick, maybe, there we go, some quick refreshers. The project site is located in the northwest corner of the city. We're about 3/4 of a mile east of 135 on the south side of County Line Road. There are 3 office buildings to the north with access to County Line Road. And then Easy Street, if you remember, is a private drive that runs through the development and extends south and then connects into the public Easy Street there at the southeast corner of the property. The zoning back in 06, we rezoned from R1. The property was zoned R1 to the R3 for the southern 6 acres, and then B1 to the northern 3.6 acres. With the modifications of the UDO and the zoning map, we're now zoned RMC, which really was necessitating all these variances, if you remember. So if you recall, there are actually 2 structures out there that are already built. One on lot 4, there's an amended final plat for the construction of lot 4, and these are condominiums. So you'll see a unit A, B, C, and D that was replatted on the lots that are out there. There's the amended final plat for the as-built of lot 5. we're now looking to get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 done. 6 and 7 are what is up next and what is financed. So that's what we're here for. As Gabe identified, this last one that was missed was actually a minimum building height, not a maximum building height. It's a minimum building height of 30 feet in the RMC or the RMC district. The structures that are out there now and the structures that are being proposed have a minimum height of approximately 23 feet and 1/16 inch. And so the variance request is relief from that minimum 30 foot down to, I think, Kevin, I saw in the report it said 23 feet. I don't know if you rounded that on purpose, but the minimum variance necessary would take me down to 23 feet, 8 and 1/16 inch. If the board would be so inclined to make it an even 23 feet for play, that's great. Here's the section view of the architectural drawing from the finished floor elevation at 0. You can see the peak with the 12/8 pitch takes it up to 23, 8, and 1/16. And so we're about 64 inches shy of the minimum for the RMC district. This is a screenshot or a street view shot rather of the unit 5 or the lot 5 structure. 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 are going to be very consistent to this, both in aesthetic as well as building height. So the idea is to maintain some consistency with those structures. Unit 4 or lot 4 rather, which is just to the south, which is in the background of the picture, is pretty much identical as well. I do have the statutory criteria if you'd like to go through that.
I do for the record, just to confirm that your responses apply to all 5 variances.
All identical.
Or all
Yes.
5 documents. Yep.
Yes,
All
that's
right.
correct.
So with that, then yes, let's start with number 1. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The reduction of the current minimum building height standards allows for the construction of the condominium structures as was originally approved under the previous ordinances back in 2007 and as already exist on lots 4 and 5.
And then number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The existing condominiums on lots 4 and 5 do not meet current building height standards, but are in line with the requested variance. No effect to the use and value of adjacent properties has been experienced with those buildings being constructed in the same manner to which this variance would allow future buildings to be constructed.
And then number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
The building height requirements within the current municipal code are different than that was in place when the property was originally developed in 2007. The strict application of the standards within the new code would prohibit the continued construction of the condominiums as they already exist on lots 4 and 5.
And number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard area navigation.
That is correct.
Anything you'd like to add before we ask staff for comment?
Thank you.
All right, staff.
Thank you. Yeah, I will say I did round the number down to 23 feet. That way, in case something happens and you need a few extra,
Appreciate that.
few less inches, don't think anyone will have a problem. Staff is in favor of this variance. To get back to when this was originally approved, they were committed to 1-story buildings. And with the changes in our UDO that require a minimum of 30 feet in height, it really, I guess it could be done, but it would be a very odd looking building and wouldn't match what's out there, so. I see no issues with the reduction in height to meet the other buildings that are out there currently.
And no conditions proposed from what I've seen on the staff report.
No conditions.
Anything else you'd like to add before I close the public hearing?
No,
All
I
right.
appreciate that.
Mr. Milburn?
I guess the question, could they add a 7-foot flag on top?
Mr.
I always come up with the weird things.
Mr. King?
I have nothing.
Mrs. Peters?
Nothing.
I have nothing. I like the idea. All right, I'll take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented be they oral or written for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. We will start with BZA 2024-027 to reduce the minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet for lot 6.
I move that we approve the request with no conditions.
Second.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mrs. Peters. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. BZA 2024-028 to reduce the minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet for lot 7.
I move that we approve the request with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. BZA 2024-029, this is for lot 8. Same thing, to reduce minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet.
I move that we approve the request with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. BZA 2024-030 for lot number 9. This is to reduce minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet.
I move that we approve the request with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. And finally, BZA 2024-031 for lot 10 to reduce the minimum building height from 30 feet to 23 feet.
I move that we approve the request with no conditions.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise their hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Again, you are good to proceed. We will take final action here on the 26th, but
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, wait a minute. Motion to,
Motion to direct the corporation's council to adopt the findings of fact.
can we do all
Um,
5 during the identification?
You can just do one set, one.
One apply to all 5. Yeah, okay.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition numbers BZA 2024-027 through 031. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mrs. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Next up is BZA 2024-032. This is the development standards variance for the southeast corner of US 31 and Worsville Road. Petitioner is Catherine Rayner on behalf of Crew Car Wash, requesting relief from 3 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Number 1, to increase maximum front east setback from 80 feet to 130 feet. Number 2, to reduce the required transparency on both front facades. And number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on the side rear facades. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Swear on Mrs. Gregory, questions to the best of your knowledge.
Are all the notices and receipts in order?
Yep, notices and receipts are in order and in our file.
That comprehensive plan, agree with, city ordinance.
All right. Name and address for the record.
Nathan Barr, 500 96th Street.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Nathan Barr.
Thank you. And did you fill out that sheet as well, Mr. Bird?
Yes, I can.
All right, tell us why you're here.
So I am here representing the car wash. Here I also have Travis and Catherine to help answer any questions. We are pursuing a variance, 3 separate variances for the car wash that's going to be located on the southeast corner of US 31 and Worthsville. The first variance we are pursuing is going to be an increase in maximum front setback, particularly on the east side, from 80 feet to 130 feet. Due to the property configuration, we have 2 fronts, one on the west side and one on the east side. So the only way to meet the setback would be to elongate the building just to meet the setback requirement. So we are providing the maximum setback on the primary frontage being US 31.
Okay.
The second variance we are pursuing is going to be a reduction for the car transparency on both fronts. The primary purpose is it's car wash facility. Transparency kind of goes against what would be desired for this type of use. Additionally, due to the configuration of the building, it is elongated, so we don't have very large frontages to work with.
Okay.
And the third variance that we are pursuing is to allow the exterior material other than the predominant front facade material on the side and rear facades to maintain car washes their standard building footprint, their marketing material. They would like to deviate from the side elevations being primarily just one material. What we are presenting is much more aesthetically pleasing in our opinion.
Okay. Do you have your answers to the statutory criteria with you?
Yes.
We'll read through those as you've seen us do in the last couple, so we can get them onto the record. We'll start with number 1, to increase the maximum front east setback from 80 feet to 130 feet. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The site will still be meeting the intent of the code by applying the maximum setback to the primary frontage.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The site will still be meeting the intent of the code by applying the maximum setback to the primary frontage.
and number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
This property has 2 frontages that are on opposite sides of the parcel. Applying the 80-foot maximum front setback creates a practical difficulty in the use of the property.
And then number 4, and this applies to all 3 variances, the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard area navigation. Variance number 2, to reduce the required transparency on both front facades. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because
The employee areas inside the building will have windows on the front elevations of the building. The public will not be permitted inside the building as the majority of the car wash, the majority of the building is up top.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
While the 30% minimum requirement is not being met, windows are still being provided along the front elevations to serve the employee areas and increase the aesthetic appeal of the building.
and number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
Given the nature of the building use, the width of the building's frontage is relatively narrow. Since a large portion of the frontage is an overhead garage door, there is not sufficient room to meet the transparency requirements. It should also be noted that oftentimes during operating hours, the overhead door remains open, so the appearance of the facade would appear as though there is additional transparency provided.
and number 3, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on the side rear facades. Number 1, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community because
The mix of materials will create a more aesthetically pleasing building.
number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because
The mix of materials will create a more aesthetically pleasing building.
and number 3, the strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because
We believe that the accenting of the metal materials creates a betterment of the architectural design, and that the intent of the code is still being met as the side elevation is still predominantly brick.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add before I get staff's comments?
No.
All right, staff.
So staff is favorable of all 3 variance requests. If you've read our recommended recommendation, you can see that you need a very large, long building to meet both of those setbacks, since they have 2 fronts. we believe that this is really justified for a hardship for variance number one. Variance number two, this is a car wash. It is not a commercial storefront. Not typically something that you would need a lot of transparency on. Then the third variance, you've seen this variance before, and you know our thoughts.
All right, appreciate you have one condition to apply to all three.
We did, that they would conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevation depicted in Exhibit D.
Trying to assume you have no issues with this regard.
Yes.
Anything else before I close the public hearing? Board, any questions?
I do not.
Mr. King? Ms. Peters?
None.
Pretty straightforward. I have none either. All right, I will take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the unified development ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Ms. Peters, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. All right. Docket BZA 2024-032. Request number one, to increase the maximum front east setback from 80 feet to 130 feet.
I move that we approve this request with the one condition in the staff report. Final plans shall substantially conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevations depicted in Exhibit D.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn, with the one condition to approve. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Request number two, to reduce the required transparency on both front facades.
I move that we approve this request with the same condition.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn, to approve with the same condition. All in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Number three, to allow exterior materials other than the predominant front facade material on the side rear facades.
I move that we approve this request with the one condition.
Motion by Mr. King, with the same condition, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0. I'll take a motion to direct the Corporations Council to draft written findings of fact.
Having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Council Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2024-032. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as our final decision and final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All in favor, raise a hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. You are also welcome to proceed. We will take final action in 2 weeks. Before the staff and get going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any new business from the floor? Seeing none, any announcements? None. Great. I'll take a motion to adjourn. You can stop the recording. Microphone's off.